Welcome back to another episode of Dynasty Theory here at DD Fantasy Football. I'm John Bauer. Find me on X at the Bauer Club. I'm joined by Dan Lamagna at Coach Dan Dynasty, not Coach Dandy Nasty. Well, that will cost extra.
I might
Dan,
need some
what's up?
lower and up. I need some lower and uppercase letters in my name on here. But just a quick question out of curiosity, before we get into it, the Cleveland Browns today, their ownership I saw went on record of saying they struck out on Deshaun Watson. Is it just me, or should they wait for him to leave the building and not be part of the organization to put that publicly, or is that just your typical dysfunctional Browns?
I think you can say at this point, hey, we struck out. I think that's okay. Anyway, I'm also joined by Mitch Sorensen at DynoMC on X. What's up?
What's going on? I'm really excited about this topic because if anyone is in a couple more than 2 or 3 dynasty leagues, it is trade season. The amount of trade offers that I'm getting and receiving, that I'm receiving and sending out, I should say. They're a lot of these players. So I put these show notes together just so everyone knows. And I use Dynasty Daddy to get some trades and all that fun stuff. About a month ago, we were looking at players, they'd have 100 trades, and that would be a lot. A lot of these guys had 280, 300 trades done in this past week. So it's definitely starting to heat up in the Dynasty landscape out there.
And tonight we're going to spend some time talking about some veterans. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been sprinkling in some veteran talk. I know rookie season is upon us, but if you go through your leagues, especially if there's somebody that recently took over an orphan, there are some very nice values to be had. And as we go through the players tonight, we're going to talk about their price points. We're going to talk about some specific trades. We're going to be looking at it and saying, hey, are there values to be had on these specific players? Because Mitch, when you pulled the 6 players tonight, and previously a couple weeks ago, we did an episode on some of the most traded players across the dynasty landscape. A couple weeks ago, we talked about some veterans specifically that we were looking to buy, but now we're kind of putting these guys to the test and putting these names up on the board here. And as we're going through, I see Sean, I see Mark, I see Monkey, Frank, Cameron, Nate, Garrison, Diaz, Ty. What's going on, everybody? Let us know in the chat what you're thinking when we discuss these players. Let us know what you're seeing across your leagues, because once these conversations, take place, I think that's where we can really spark some ideas. And, maybe it's not specific to you in one league, but it might create an opportunity somewhere else. So going through these players, first up, Christian McCaffrey. We know what type of asset Christian McCaffrey can be on a weekly basis, but unfortunately for him, he's got that Achilles tendonitis. He missed a lot of time last year, came back, missed more time with the knee injury. Mitch, Christian McCaffrey, he's valued right between 106 and 107 fantasy calc at running back 14. Where are you on McCaffrey? How willing are you? You're a contender. You traded for a 106 or 107, and you have that at your disposal. As we sit here, the calendar is going to turn towards April. What are you looking to do with Christian McCaffrey?
Dude, it's so hard because all of these players that we're going to talk about tonight, they're really good. You could look at it both ways. And for Christian McCaffrey, he turns 29 in June, and we're off running backs when they turn 27, and he's had the last couple of years too, where there's injuries, there's stuff going on. But even in the 4 games he came back, he had 15 receptions for 150 yards. That's better than what most backs have over the course of the season. And so for me, if it's at that price point to where Fantasy Calc has him at the 106, 107, I can't buy into that price. But what I did find on Dynasty Daddy is you could get him for much cheaper than that. And I think that's what happened. You brought up people taking over orphans or people just looking to, there's so much talk about that 27 draft class now. There's people who are willing to sell out and tank for the next 2 years just to get the 101 in that draft class. So I think you're going to be able to get McCaffrey for a little bit cheaper than that 106.
Yeah, I agree. When I saw that, and again, this is from Fantasy Calc, you can see on the bottom of the screen, running back 14. Uh, you know, my eyebrows raised a little bit because as we'll go through these players tonight, there aren't a ton of backs that I'm willing to spend a 2025 first for because we have an influx of talent coming in at the running back position. And we know that, the wide receivers coming in, sure, they have their warts, but I think some of them are picking up steam, most notably Travis Hunter over the last couple days specifically. But Dan, across the running back landscape, how willing are you to buy into Christian McCaffrey with everything we know today?
I'm willing to buy into them. I'm looking at some of the interesting price points we're seeing in the chat there. And, I'm seeing some, 109s to 112s, in that range. And I think I'm with that range. The questions I have on McCaffrey, which I often do at running backs. I mean, hey, we're approaching that age 30 where we all get nervous, 29 in June. But is Christian McCaffrey different than your typical running back? I've said that about Derrick Henry in the past. He's just not a normal human being. He's made differently genetically. I think you can get a couple more years, out of a guy like that. A little bit of my concern, though, with Christian McCaffrey, too, is I saw in the chat someone said, hey, I'd rather pay up for Barkley. And you know what? Like, there's some great value there because the Eagles are still in prime right now. Like, the Eagles are in their, out of what you want to call that period of time where they're going to be good for a few years. The Niners, they haven't signed one free agent this offseason. We've seen them lose a lot of guys, kind of like the Cowboys did last year. They're losing all that depth. So how heavily are they going to have to rely on Christian McCaffrey this year? And could he hold up when this isn't probably not a Super Bowl contending team? I think they're on the fringe of they need a lot of things to go right to be there. So I'm in on him, JB, for the production. Mitch said, hey, when he does produce in those games we saw him last year, the catching volume, the overall volume, he's a great player. I'll roll the dice on him on a contending team, but not going to overpay by any means.
Yeah, and I see the comments, definitely cheaper than the 106, 107. And you'll see the trades we discuss. That is the case. Now, I always say with Fantasy Calc, there should be an asterisk because they are based on real trades that have been completed. But you always get those curveballs, those oddballs that get thrown in that can really elevate somebody's price. Like I'm looking at a trade here. Christian McCaffrey, Terry McLaurin, and 303 for Drake May. I don't know a ton of leagues that's getting done, but a couple trades that you pulled, Mitch, and they're interesting price points. Christian McCaffrey for 112 and 412, 12 teams, start 11, full PPR, super flex. Where are you on that one?
On a contender, I'm willing to pay that because we can remember 1 year ago at this time to where Derrick Henry, hey, he's never going to catch passes with the Ravens. Like, what's his upside actually going to be when he goes there? Good offense, sure, but Lamar's going to steal all the rushing touchdowns. We all heard this, right? And then Derrick Henry went out and led people to a lot of money in the fantasy championships. So for me, I'm not just immediately going, no, he's 29. This is bad advice. You don't want to spend a first round pick on a player like Christian McCaffrey. But if I have the 112, that's because I won the league. I haven't traded for it. Let's just say it's my own pick. I feel really good about my roster. I'm willing to add Christian McCaffrey, especially if you have a good team and Christian McCaffrey can be your flex guy now. You're not looking at him as your running back 1, running back 2. What if you can slot him in for your flex at that 112? Talking about that, I'm more than happy to start to buy in at that price point.
Before I turn it over to Dan and we discuss one of the other trades here. Looking at Christian McCaffrey, obviously we know the stats. We know the situation with the Achilles. 1.6 yards per route run in 2024. It was an uptick from 23, and obviously it's not a huge sample size in 24, but it has decreased from 2021 and 2022. Only 4% of his carries went for over 15 yards. It was almost 7.5% in 2023. And then you think, well, maybe it was a decline with the 49ers in general. Jordan Mason was almost at 8%. 3.35 yards after contact per attempt for Jordan Mason, who now obviously has gone elsewhere. And then you have Christian McCaffrey, 2.7 yards after contact per attempt. It was 3.42 in 2023. Now, the yards after contact per attempt, again, that there's an asterisk required there as well, because offensive line play, maybe you're getting more yards prior to the contact, but there are numbers to show that maybe the decline has started. And again, whenever these guys battle Father Time is undefeated, except for Dan Lamagna. He's like a fine wine, guys. He gets better with age.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I'll take the compliment, JB. But I guess when we look at that, hey, is the decline happening? And if I'm reading Mitch's facial expressions, right, I don't think Mitch or I are kind of buying the Father Time thing for the yards per carry last year. Like, I just don't think he was healthy. And I think he was preserving himself to try to get through the season. So when I look back and say, hey, is that guy declining? I want to know, hey, is there something behind the scenes? It wasn't even behind the scenes. It was out there. This guy was hurt and injured and playing through it. And, it took a monumental Herculean effort to come back, and he did. And then he just wore himself right down again. So
But who's to say that's not an issue moving forward?
No doubt about it. And I guess would go to my point of, hey, this Niners team isn't the same Niners team. How heavily are they going to rely on him? I think he's going to come out of the gates good, but 17 National Football League games, my God, that's not easy on anybody, especially if it's a struggling team or a team that, doesn't have the 2-3 running back system and the depth. So there's definitely questions there. Would I do it for 112, 412 in this trade? Yes, I would roll the dice on that and take that chance, JB, that maybe he can't make it through 16 games, but he would be a big reason why I got to the postseason. If I get in the dance, I have a chance. I'll try to build my depth. I think when we're making these kind of trades, the only thing I would add for our listeners is, what is that threshold? Who are you willing to not get in that draft this year to get Christian McCaffrey? So when I think of like 105, 106, 107, I might be afraid to not get one of those guys because I'm pretty confident there could be a star there. When we get to 110, 111, 112, I'm more willing to roll the dice and live without getting one of those guys. Not that it can't be a gem, but we're playing the percentages a little bit more.
And I saw another comment earlier, and I'm scrolling through, and of course I lost it. But essentially, not paying the first, but being willing to get to that value with other pieces. And Mitch, I talk about that all the time. Like we'll talk about a player. I'm like, okay, the 112, the value is perfectly fine, but maybe I can do 204 and 212 instead, or something like that. Make sure you hit the like button. Hit that like button. It's just below. It's just a little click away. Dan, Christian McCaffrey and Aaron Jones for a 26 second and 27 first, 12 team start 11 full PPR.
So 2 quick thoughts on this. If you're in a vacuum, I would take Christian McCaffrey, a future second, 27's far away. But I'm going to be wiser than I was in past episodes of Dynasty Theory and say, this is not a trade I would just normally do. All right. Because I don't want, those leagues where I have McCaffrey or, I'll be getting offers with the 26 and 27. I don't like to just trade that far out. I really don't. As much as I love trading future picks, like here we are in 25. Hey, if you want to talk about my 26 picks, let's roll. Let's get into some discussions. Very rarely will I trade out to 27 unless it's just like awesome. We're talking about a 29-year-old guy with an injury history at the running back position. I'm not going to trade that far out. I like the McCaffrey side, but it's just a trade I wouldn't do.
Dan, Mitch, where are you on this one?
I was just gonna say I agree with Dan on this one. It's the value's fine. You're looking at a future second in 2 years first. Yeah, I mean, that value's fine. But we already know the hype for the 27 draft. Just look on Twitter and scroll for one day. You're going to see everyone be like, hey, it's time to start to tank for 27, like I brought up earlier. But a big reason is look at these running backs. Aaron Jones probably isn't going to help you very much in 2026. So that 27 first is probably not going to be that good, especially if you also have Christian McCaffrey on your team. We're hoping he's good for this year. I don't know how much faith we're going to have that he's going to be really good and competent for 2 years to help you make that 27 first round pick a later pick. If that ends up being the 105, knowing how the thoughts are in the community about that draft class, I think it's a pretty horrible move to do that.
Yeah, and we talk about this all the time. The further we get out talking about the 27 draft class, or any year where we're 2 years out, you start to get more variance and a wider range of outcomes for that pick. Because like you said, Mitch, maybe you're loading up on players like Christian McCaffrey or an Aaron Jones, who maybe we get 1 year. Maybe it's not even a year. But like I'm going through these trades and not just the two we discussed, the range, the way people are looking at Christian McCaffrey. And I'm looking at the chat as well. Like there are a Cooper Cup for Christian McCaffrey. Echelon talking about packaging up Christian McCaffrey to get Marv. Like there was a very wide range. Josh Palmer 204 and 508 for Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey for 112. Mitch, one more trade. It's not on the docket tonight, but Christian McCaffrey in 208 for Michael Pittman in 202. 12 teams start 10 PPR.
I take McCaffrey there.
Same.
And is that more so because of the way you're viewing Pittman in that offense?
I love Pittman, but yes, the offense is the problem. I love Pittman. I have no faith in that offense. I don't care who they want to, split reps with there at quarterback.
So much uncertainty. That's the hard part.
Oh, I think that was Jennings for Cup. Well, either way, McCaffrey, Jennings, use check. Let's lock and load. I see the comment from Sean Pittman as a ghost now. Yeah, it can get very frustrating with that offense. And the bigger picture here, and you always know we spend a lot of time on the first player we discuss, but the bigger picture here, each and every week we talk about specific players, but we try to frame it with the more overarching concept and theory and strategy. If you're acquiring a player like Christian McCaffrey, or we talked about a Devontae Adams a couple weeks ago, if you're acquiring one of those players, you got to be willing to ride him into the ground. And whatever the outcome is, like there is going to be very little room to be wrong on that player. And what I mean by that is having a market to be able to move off of them. If you're a contender and you're acquiring Christian McCaffrey and he's smashing, you're not looking to move him anyway. If you're a contender and things go terribly wrong and you can point to Christian McCaffrey as being one of those reasons, there's going to be very little opportunity. But who's to say he doesn't bounce back at the age of 29 or maybe even in 2026 if necessary. So moving on here. Oh boy, a lot of time on Christian McCaffrey. Mark Andrews, age 30. Trinity tight end 15. So oftentimes on any of the shows on the DD Fantasy Football YouTube channel, you're going to hear us talk about the Trinity tool, the Trinity score. It is on the DD Fantasy Football website. It is a combination. It takes into account yards after catch per reception, target share, and a team's air yard share. So really you're looking at the way that a wide receiver or tight end is being utilized, and the higher the score, obviously the better. And then it correlates to fantasy points per game. But again, if you tune into any of the shows on the channel here, I'm sure this is not the first time you've heard anybody talk about the Trinity score. So Dan, Mark Andrews, Fantasy Calc tight end 10. He is on Fantasy Calc right above the 201, and that's not incorporating tight end premium. What are you looking at with Mark Andrews?
That's probably one of the most polarizing players, JB, because I think we all know what Mark Andrews is capable of. I mean, the dude's a beast. He's still got Lamar. They're still best buds. There's this little part of me of the way last year ended where, he didn't win that game for Baltimore. He makes that catch at the end there. Like, I feel like he's going to be just in the weight room so much this offseason because he feels so terrible about last year that I just feel like a really good year is coming for Mark Andrews. But I'm not ignoring the fact that he's 30. I look at the tight end position, and from like my rankings 5 through 12, any of those guys could flip anywhere. And if I don't have one of the big four, I'm just trying to have a solid tight end position. And Andrews is a guy I would like, but I'm very careful to not overpay. So if my tight end room just needs a Mark Andrews, will I give somewhere in that 203, 204 range? If I'm needy enough, but I got to be really needy at that tight end position.
We have already seen how volatile Mark Andrews' value is. Look at the beginning of 2024. I think it was maybe one quarter into the season, and Isaiah Likely was a top 6 dynasty tight end. And that's not necessarily a knock on Isaiah Likely, but Mark Andrews, he was left for dead. There's people I wouldn't spend any second on Mark Andrews, even in tight end premium leagues. And admittedly, I was a little bit lower. I don't think I got quite to that point, but I certainly did move him down a little bit. Looking at a few things before I turn it over to Mitch for your thoughts. Since 2021, we've seen a decrease in his Trinity score, again, incorporating the way he's being utilized in that offense. In 2024, 20% touchdown rate. You see it right there on the screen. 11 touchdowns, 55 receptions. Prior to 2024, for his career, he was at 10%. So he doubled up on his touchdown rate in 2024. And if you look at his game log at the end of the season, touchdown. It was every single game. Yards per route run, still solid, 1.88, only behind a handful of tight ends, but his offensive snaps have decreased each and every year. 2022, 83%, 2023, 70%, 61% last year. But again, it was a little more skewed because it did have the uptick as the season progressed. But Mitch, are you worried at all about Mark Andrews? He turns 30. There was already some talk about, hey, would the Ravens trade him? Would the Ravens cut him? But here we are, March 31st. He's still a Raven.
So, I mean, there was that talk, but I don't think any of that was coming from the Ravens. It was just people needing something to talk about. Like, he dropped a pass. That means they're going to cut him. Like, he was never going to leave the Ravens. So you were bringing up his weekly stuff, John. And one thing, week 6 on, he had 2 games that he wasn't a tight end 1. 2. And you can look through so many other tight ends who have 2 games all season that they're a tight end 1. And so, yes, it was the touchdowns definitely helped. But where you're buying him in at his price point, I'm more than happy to get him. I mean, I love Mason Taylor. I think Mason Taylor is going to be really good in the NFL, right? If you're telling me Mason Taylor or Mark Andrews, who do I think is going to score more points over the next 3 years? I'm going to say Mark Andrews. And so it turns into if we're moving an early 2nd round pick in a tight end premium league for Mark Andrews, those points are hard to come by. We could really talk up a lot of these rookie tight ends, and they never end up meaning anything. Yeah, their value can be higher. That's true. Mark Andrews' value is always going to be kind of in the dust from here on out, but he's going to produce. And maybe not a lot, but if he's a tight end 1 for most weeks during the year, I'm willing to buy into that.
All right. Again, just looking through some of the comments here. Mitch, let's start with you. Mark Andrews and Michael Penix. And this is an unfair one because we know how you feel.
I like this,
but we know how you feel about Michael Penix. But will your maybe love for Mark Andrews outweigh your disdain for Michael Penix? And that's again a conversation for another day, and we've kind of had that conversation already. But Mark Andrews and Michael Penix for Evan Engram and Sam Darnold, 12-team start 11 full PPR, and an extra point for tight ends.
Mark Andrews and Michael Penix. I'm just so out on Darnold at this point. You pretty much give me any other quarterback that's like him, I'm more than willing to take the other side.
Yeah, I'm with Mitch, man. Like, I wish I had a big sledgehammer here right now, or a flag to plant. It's just, Mitch, I wouldn't even say it's that I'm like out on Darnold, but best case scenario where we're hoping he, does well in this spot. Penix, you're hoping for a lot longer time, and Andrews is better than Ingram in my books, even though Ingram's situation's nice.
All right, now here we get to just Andrews or a pick, and this is an extra half point for tight ends, full PPR, 12-team, start 10. Dan, I want to start with you. Mark Andrews, and you kind of already talked about it. If you could do the 203, 204, well, Mark Andrews for the 204. And again, only an extra half point for tight ends here.
So I'm going to go with this. I'm seeing our guy Shane in the chat there, and he's, tight end 1 for Mandrews, and tight end 1 through 4 is all that matters. And all in all, I agree with Shane. And I think most rosters, I might want to hang on to my second because I probably have enough of a tight end to compete, or I got one of the elite ones. But it's that specific roster that just my tight end position sucks. That, hey, I'm willing maybe to give up that 204 to get Andrews, and just it solidifies my roster. Now I got a tight end to compete with Mitch's team that I might have just been a tight end away, because as Mitch put it, I think if you're going to ask me the next 2-3 years who I think is going to score more points, if I'm that much of a contender and tight end's what I need, I'll take Andrews here. If tight end's not what I need, I'll take the pick.
I see a shout out from Frank. Big fan of your content, Shane. Go over. I mean, you're already on the DD Fantasy Football YouTube channel. Check out Shane Says. Brand new episode will be dropping, I believe, Wednesday morning. Shane, please correct me if I'm wrong, but he's been diving into a lot of great topics last week, kind of a look at wide receiver too. So make sure while you're on the channel, you go check that out.
Hey, just real quick, John, while they're checking out Shane, I love Shane too, man. I'd say I'm a fan as well, but I'm throwing that challenge flag and all that darn Eagles swag my rival's rocking on his podcast, man. Eagles championships, Eagles background, killing me, Shane. But I say that with love.
All right, one more trade here, Mitch. Mark Andrews or a 26-second and 303 full PPR, extra point for tight ends.
The extra point, then yeah, I'll take Andrews there. On that 204 one, I wouldn't have taken the 204 just because it's the half point premium. And if you're he had 5 catches 4 total times last year. That premium's really not helping him out at all. So I have a hard time paying that in that kind of premium league. You give me the full point or more than, one a little bit more there.
Yeah. And again, I saw a comment when we were talking about Christian McCaffrey that I think it was Monkey, that he's out on Christian McCaffrey, but some of these price points were interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it's much different from Mark Andrews. Like on my cross positional tiers, there it is. Excuse me. I have Christian McCaffrey in red, somebody that I'm typically looking to sell at his fantasy calc value. But again, there are situations that would call for a pivot. And Mark Andrews, I'm kind of neutral on him from a value perspective. But if you're going to give me in a full point tight end premium, Mark Andrews for the 303 and a 26-second, like it's prime opportunity to look at some of these veterans. And if you can get them at a price point that's not going to cripple you if you're wrong, it's a no-brainer for me. So, Dan, you're in this same spot there on that one?
Agreed, sir. With you both.
And boom, just as I say, Garrison says, I take the picks. But that's what makes it so fantastic. Whenever you're looking at these veterans versus pick situations, there's going to be a market on both sides. And having that willing trade partner, where each of you think you maybe have identified a market inefficiency, that's what makes it interesting. So those are kind of the price points that we're looking at Mark Andrews. Oh boy, Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 16 last year in weekly points per game. Turns 30 in September. Trinity, wide receiver 24. Fantasy calc, wide receiver 28. Just blew up last year, especially with the 13 touchdowns. But when you're tied to Jaden Daniels and what we saw in year one, that's not a surprise. Dan, Terry McLaurin, I know you can be an ageist at times, but also you're looking to compete in a lot of leagues. So you try to find that nice middle ground. But is Terry McLaurin maybe one of those veterans that you are interested in acquiring, especially with the season he had last year?
Am I interested in acquiring him? Yes. If I could get him at the prices right, I think he's going to have a very good year. I'm not really concerned about Debo. I'm not really high on Debo. I think Debo was a nice signing. He'll be an extra weapon for them. He'll probably be motivated with his new team, but I don't think he's going to take away too much from T-Mac. So I think McLaurin will be solid. Although when I look at these trades coming up, JB, I don't know how much I really want T-Mac.
And like, again, I like Terry McLaurin. I don't know if there's many fantasy players, many dynasty managers, at the right price. Like, people are going to scoff it and turn down Terry McLaurin, but 13 touchdowns. I talked about Mark Andrews' touchdown rate in 2024. Terry McLaurin, 13 touchdowns on 82 receptions. Even with the great Jaden Daniels, who in many people's eyes is the quarterback one for Dynasty, I don't know if that is sustainable. And you look at what he's done historically, wasn't that different overall on a per game basis when you compare to 2022. So before we get into any of the trades, I personally could not move any 25 first for Terry McLaurin, just because, yes, season long he played every game, had a fantastic point total, but on a per game basis, he's still giving you wide receiver 2 numbers. And ultimately, is it difference making production? I mean, I think a lot of people might say yes, but I'm not there. So Mitch, turning 30 in September, are you looking to invest in Terry McLaurin?
So this isn't a Terry McLaurin thing for me. It's if you're in the ddfantasyfootball.com, go sign up so you can get John's tiers in the Discord. You can see the tier. He has them in tier 7 overall, right? You can go in there and look at the sheet. You can figure all this stuff out. Make sure you have access if you're in the Discord. But I'm not going to name all the players, but I will just say there are 12, 13, 14 players, somewhere around there. Wide receivers. I would take every wide receiver in there over Terry McLaurin. And it's just because he's getting to that age now to where it's hard for me to buy in, and it's such a huge tier that I think all these guys could have that same kind of season that Terry McLaurin had last year, and they're all 4 to 5 years younger at this point.
So we're looking at Terry McLaurin at a 27 fourth or Zay Flowers.
Zay Flowers.
Yeah, and this is where I do become ageist. It's just a 29 going on 30 thing. He's like a poor man Mike Evans to me. And I think if we do look back at Washington last year, they had no one else to throw to. I mean, that's a pretty weak receiving core outside of McLaurin. Ertz is kind of ageless, gets open, and they had a
has it changed as we sit here in March?
Yeah. I think Debo gives him something. Like, he gives him a weapon as long as he's healthy and could stay on the field. Again, it gets better. But so usage continues, but I love Zay, guys. I don't even I think he'll make up that gap over time. 24 years old, entering his prime.
I have them tiered together, so I'm certainly a little bit closer than you guys. But again, you look at the age difference, and I think for a lot of people, Zay Flowers is going to be a lot more liquid, and there's going to be more opportunity there. But if I'm contending and I have Terry McLaurin on my roster, would I move him for Zay Flowers? That's a tough sell.
Don't do
that's
it.
That's a tough sell.
Don't do it.
I'm just saying that that's a tough sell for the third time there in about 4 seconds. I see from Evie, his value is high now, and it'll be crazy when he gets extended. Again, turning 30 here, like, is there going to be production? Certainly, but we see how quickly these values can shift with just a little bit of a lull in production. Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, obviously Devontae a few years older. And this isn't a knock on Terry McLaurin, at least for me, but I can't get to that 108, 109 price tag. So if you're sitting there, if you're in the chat, let us know. 12-team super flex, let's say 1.75 PPR for tight ends. Are you moving the 108 or 109 for Terry McLaurin? And this very next trade, Dan, 109, a 26th third, and a 26th fourth, or Terry McLaurin.
Here's where I will take McLaurin. I don't care about those little extra parts after, the third and the fourth. I just want to get my guy. So when I look at 109, it's close, but I'm thinking it's just after the threshold of a receiver or player I would probably regret having. So if I'm in it to win this year, I will roll the dice there on McLaurin. 109 is probably that, just to the point where I'll do it. 107, no. 108, I don't think so. 109, I might roll the dice.
This is my challenge flag. A piece of
It
balled
just
up
keeps on
toilet
rolling.
paper.
Bring it,
Piece
bring
of
it.
balled up toilet paper. I can't get there, Dan. And again, like we talked about it earlier, if we can get to that value by using other assets, okay, I get it. But with this class and with that being tight in premium in that situation that I just mentioned, I don't know how I would be willing to move the 109.
I could definitely see the argument. And when I'm looking at my rankings right now, when we get to that 109 range, I guess it depends where you have the tight ends. You mentioned that tight end premium. I know, but Mitch has been ringing the bell for Loveland. If he's not in that, he's close to that range for me, but I'm talking myself into it. Tet McMillan, I have some mixed feelings on. Luther Burden, Abuka. I like these guys, but I really need to see their landing spots, and I don't have that right now. You know what I mean? Like, do they get drafted in the first round, or do any of them slide to the second? What offenses do they go with? I just think McLaurin, there's that little part of me tied to Jaden Daniels. Like you mentioned, those receivers that have kind of slid, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, a couple situations. Part of their slide is their team struggles, their quarterback struggles because of injuries. McLaurin's in a prime situation, at least for 2-3 years. So again, contending team want to win now. You might get me on that 109, not 107, 108, but 109. You might get me. But I understand your challenge, AB, because again, some of those guys that we're talking about there, Loveland, McMillan, Burden, Abuka, you can make an argument. I would understand it if you'd want them more than McLaurin.
I'm laughing in the comment. Adam says he's about 16 minutes behind, so my comments may be out of sequence.
That happens.
He starts saying, "Now, how could you say that about Christian McCaffrey? What are we doing here?"
So for me, it's not just looking at the wide receivers that could be in that range. I think there's a strong chance that Shador's there at the 109. I think there's a strong chance you could get Caleb or Travion there at the 109. Dan, you're saying no. I am a Sanders guy too. The rest of the Dynasty community, they are not Sanders guys. He's going to slip, and I'm going to have a lot of shares because people are going to let him fall way too far.
How quick is that going to flip, though, after draft day when he gets drafted with a potential starting job? I think he could go 103.
But is that not the expectation? It's baked into his current value?
But I feel like if he goes 102, 103, I'm stoked. Like, I'm not worried about Russ Wilson or Jameis Winston in New York. Coach and staff may get fired, and the next year Shador will be the guy. Like, I love that opportunity for him in those spots.
And Mitch, you just alluded to it,
Vegas.
But Nate commented in the chat, it's not about which receivers there at 109, and it's about what else you can buy for the 109, or if you were looking to go another direction. And that's a comment that comes up so many times. Hey, would you move this player for this pick? And maybe it's a wide receiver. And the comment you get oftentimes is, oh, there isn't a wide receiver I would prefer over that player. And I think that is so, I don't want to say short-sighted, but like tunnel vision. And I think the comment from Nate, and again, what Mitch mentioned with Shador Sanders, is spot on there. But
I think
JB,
just where I struggle, or to Mitch's point, is like I'm going by what I'm projecting them. Like if Shador is at 109 in any of my drafts, holy cow, man, I'm happy as a pig, and you know what? I'd be shocked.
We shall see.
Is happy as a pig in like poop?
This is PG. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
That's
is
right.
Is that an actual expression?
It is.
Don't tell me you've never heard that expression before. Pigs love that. They roll around.
I like how we can actively see John searching to see if this is a real thing. It is. I promise.
Thank you, Mitch. Even in Utah, they know. Come on.
It is. Yes.
Side of the state, JB.
I mean, happy as a pig in mud. I've never heard like feces. I've never heard that one.
You haven't been around a lot of pigs. His camera is following him everywhere.
I've never heard that, which is probably shocking to people because I look like a real farmer and outdoors man, and yeah.
You're sheltered in Pittsburgh over there.
Clearly, yeah. All right. Well, not far from Pittsburgh, over in Cleveland, Jerry Jeudy, age 26, Trinity score wide receiver 30, fantasy calc value wide receiver 41, 17 games played, over 1,200 yards, touchdowns. Not to Terry McLaurin standards, but still, turned out a very nice season. Valued right at the 201 on fantasy calc. Mitch, where do you sit on Jerry Jeudy? And would you rather, at the values we discussed, Terry McLaurin at his value or Jerry Jeudy at his value? Because I think that's an interesting discussion.
That's hard because there's just no one to throw to in that offense. I mean, they have Njoku, they have Jeudy, and I mean, people were hyping up Cedric Tillman last year, but that leaves a lot to be desired. I like Jeudy at his price a lot more than I like Terry, but a lot of that, I hate to go back to the age factor because these are old guys. We pick these guys for a reason. They are good players who are aging. Are you willing to take the gamble on them? On Terry, I'm not willing to. On Jeudy, I am. And this is the guy that Dan brought up. I asked you guys for a couple of players and Dan brought him up. And I think it's a really good player to talk about because his price point isn't to where it could be, especially if Cam Ward goes in there and shows out. And I think we all agree Cam Ward's going to be the pick. So if he goes there, he starts and shows out. Yeah. I think he's going to Cleveland. Do you guys really think he's going to go to Tennessee?
You think they're going to ride it out with Levis?
I think they're willing to be bad for a year and let Levis go. That's my opinion on it. I'm just saying, don't be shocked when they go. I can't remember the defensive end's name. What's his name, Dan?
Abdul Carter.
Thank you. He's gonna go 101. Just wait.
What was that D? What was that D word? Defense? I'm not familiar. I don't like it.
Yep. Just wait.
I'm surprised by that though. That you would think the Titans are going to pass on Cam Ward, but if they don't see him as a long-term solution, then I get it. But and Kenny Pickett is there in Cleveland. They got their starter of the future. Worked out here in Pittsburgh. Oh my God. Back to Jeudy. I see coming from Nate. Adams or Godwin over Jeudy. Frank says I took Adams and Godwin over Jeudy. I'm also both of them. I again tiered together, but I think gun to head, I would take both of those. So I have no issue. Alex, let him know.
Just wait. We have more.
But I'm going to be honest. That made me pause for a minute because I was like, do you think we're talking about Tennessee right now? No, because they're picking him.
I don't think they are. I really don't.
Early in our offseason, I kind of get that vibe, where Mitch was going. But as time has went on, it seems like all the stars are pointing to Cam Ward going to Tennessee. And I think it's a no-brainer. I just don't see how NFL teams just don't pass on quarterbacks, man. And I'd be absolutely shocked if they did. But
Cam Ward goes to Tennessee, I'll have 0 shares. Just saying.
But I believe in.
I'll have negative shares somehow.
I believe in Coach Vrabel there a bit to turn that team around more than I believe in anybody in Cleveland right now, and that's my concern with Jeudy in Cleveland. Wait, sorry about New England.
Did you say Vrabel?
Yeah.
What is going on right now?
There. So we're going to this old Vrabel flashback in Tennessee there. No, I think there's enough there in Tennessee where I think with Cam Ward and they got some talent around him there. Forgive me for that one there. Let me look at my Tennessee notes here. Coach Callahan with it, his dad is O-line coach.
Let's get back to Jerry Jeudy, gentlemen.
Yeah, back to Jeudy. So that takes me to my concern of Jeudy, which is the quarterback position. Now, I'm with Nick here in our chat, man. No doubt about it. I'm ready to get hurt again. I'm ready to get hurt again to some degree. My concern is Kenny Pickett that you just mentioned. That is my concern with Jeudy. But I felt like, man, we go back to the Lamb Jeudy days. I love Jeudy, man, coming out of Bama. And I know it didn't all materialize. I think there was some maturation that had to happen, some health stuff that had to happen. And then he just never really fell in the graces there of Denver. And I think he is the prime example of someone that just needed a change of scenery, goes to Cleveland, and Winston like unlocked him. And man, did he look twitchy again, like his old college highlights. And, they were able to scheme him open, and he was able to have some good production. At 26 years old, I just think the talent's there. I think the opportunity's there. He's a number one, I think. The problem is, I think they need to draft a quarterback. If Kenny Pickett becomes the answer, that's hard for me to buy.
So 24% target share without Jameis last year. 20% with, but 4 points per game more with Jameis Winston. And a 40 burger will do that, right? I absolutely hate when people say, oh, well, take away that one big play, take away that one big game. But that 40-point game in week 13, guys, that's doing some heavy lifting. But that was a league winner, So I know Scott, he's talking a lot about WAR in his recent series. If you captured that WAR, that's a league winner there in week 13. I think he's a very good wide receiver too for fantasy at the age of 25. He's somebody that interests me at his current price. This is another one where, yes, he's right above 201 on a fantasy calc, but you see a lot of the trades going through. You can get him for less. So I have him tiered with that 201 to 204. And I know a lot of folks in the chat saying, I'm absolutely looking to sell him if I can get 201. And I get that, we didn't see all that much his first couple seasons in the league out there in Denver. Injuries played a little bit into that, quarterback play, but you can only make so many excuses for somebody. 1.72 yards per route run in 2024. Better than 23 at 1.65. 2022 was the big outlier at 2.18. Touchdown rate in 2024 was lower than his career average. So I do think there's a potential for cover your ears if you hate this term, but positive regression. And then his contract is through 2027. So if they get Mitch is taking out a huge loan on this one, and he's going to put Cam Ward to the Cleveland Browns. And whenever the Browns get Cam Ward, him and Judy are just going to be a fantastic duo.
Utah won't allow me to have fun. So even if I truly 100% believe this was going to happen, I'm allowed to play DFS, prop picks, whatever I want. I'm not allowed to bet on actual fun things.
See, we're the other way.
Yeah.
In PA, we can't do the props, but we can do everything else.
Makes complete sense.
That's very aggravating. So before we get into the trades here, about 48 minutes in, hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube. I know you're already subscribed to the channel, but again, it helps out the whole channel. I know there's quite a few people watching live right now. Hit the like button. We're extremely appreciative. All right, Dan. Woo, this first one. The people saying they're selling Jerry Jeudy, I think they would certainly sell at this price. Kyren Williams for Jerry Jeudy, 12-team start 11 PPR.
Yeah, man, as much as I'm willing to get my heart broken, it's not here. Hashtag too rich. Give me Kyren Williams big time there.
So I picked this one because the next two, they were just right next to each other. I'm like, oh, hey, those two make sense. I'm like, this one doesn't make any sense. But I'm going Kyren.
Smash Kyren. I'm looking at some of the comments here. Yeah, Sean says join the Discord too. Get in there. Use code Theory. Link is in the episode description below. You get 50% off your first month. You'll stick around. Adam says, as it stands now, I may take Jeudy over 206, but no sooner. Frank says, my God, Kyren. Nick says, whoa. Jerry Jeudy for 208 is the next one. Is this a sweep across the board, gentlemen? Jerry Jeudy?
Yep.
Yeah, give me JJ. That's a beautiful spot there.
Right next to it, 206.
Jeudy.
Yeah, I'll go Jeudy.
Do I hear 205?
Jeudy.
Going once, going twice. I'll go Jeudy one more time.
Do I hear 204?
Jeudy.
That's as high as you got.
That's my stopping. That's my stopping point. No whammy.
I'm with Mitch.
So 204. Okay. I think that's fair.
I really
And
look forward to seeing.
I see Adam's finally catching up. He's on 2 times speed. He's only 3 minutes behind now.
And I really like how we've established, I heard Mitch 204. I see Garrison in the chat 204. I really think that's the sweet spot. But then I look forward to seeing where some of these draft spots are on after the draft. This is something I wouldn't mind revisiting after the draft, because there are some guys in that 204, 205, 206 range that, man, I'm eyeing them up in our rookie drafts. But I really need a good landing spot.
All right, Mitch. I think we all sell our houses. Evie says, and
we'll put your house on it first. We'll do that.
I don't know if that's going to fly.
I think it'll be okay.
But plus,
I can't do it. You guys can.
All right. So again, looking at several different price points on Jerry Jeudy, you go on X, and there's a lot of well-followed analysts out there that are saying he should be worth a first. He should be a top 25 dynasty wide receiver. So you get varying opinions. There's a wide range, a wide gap on so many of these players that we're seeing and talking tonight. So, Mitch, I got to say, love the list that you pulled here.
Thank you.
Chuba Hubbard, age 20.
This is the best part of the list. Love Chuba.
Running back 20. He popped off last year, had a prime opportunity at the expense of Jonathan Brooks and his health. Miles Sanders, he was a little involved, but now he's gone. They bring in Dan's man, Rico Dowdle. He's not going to be a receiving back that's necessarily going to kill you down the field, but 43 receptions in PPR, we love those accumulators. 3.46 yards after contact per attempt. 6% of his carries went for over 15 yards. Think back on the numbers that we threw for Christian McCaffrey in those two metrics. 10% of his carries over 10 yards. Got extended, under contract through 2028. Brooks might be toast at this point. Mitch, you seem super excited about Chuba Hubbard. Talk to us.
What's there not to like? He came on, he had a great year in one of the worst offenses that I've probably ever seen in my life until like the last 3 games of the seasons when Bryce Young could actually like play quarterback in the NFL. But
you didn't watch any 2023 Pittsburgh Steelers games.
Okay. Well, I said it was close. I didn't say it was the worst. It's really close to the worst. He does everything, and nobody has really, I don't want to say they haven't caught on yet. It's just his value isn't there. To me, like, if you flipped him and Kyron, I would love him just as much as I love Kyron, right? I think that's how much talent Chuba has. We do have to look into, it is a Bryce Young-led offense. We'll see what happens. I am not worried about Rico Dowdle. I think that's what some hesitancies coming from Dan there. Chuba's great. I'm not worried about the draft at all. I think he's going to go in. He's going to be the starter. The one thing that you can't say about him, though, is he did have 43 receptions. Somehow he had 170 yards, which I don't even know how that's possible for a running back, because they we used to do projections for the years. Running backs were always between 8 and 11. That's just how much they average per catch. He averaged 4, which is, it's a little rough.
Yeah, and I said he's not going to kill you down the field, but 43 receptions, if you're in full PPR, those points still spend the same, and you're getting those 43 points. So, Dan, I love the comment here from Sean, and I'm going to throw it over to you for your thoughts. But guys, they drafted Brooks early with Hubbard there. Now they added Dowdle, and they could easily draft another running back. The team has said they want multiple backs. Does that concern you with either Chuba Hubbard's production here in 2025 or his perceived value? And do they ultimately bring somebody in with, somewhat decent draft capital on top of already bringing in Rico Dowdle?
I think it concerns me about his ceiling. I'm with Mitch in that, hey, he's a solid back, and you like to have him on your team. Carolina boosts their interior line last year. They get a little bit better quarterback play, and I think he reaps the benefits with 10 touchdowns and 1,200 yards. But he also did that because there was nobody else. They're just really I think they wanted there to be someone else. You love to have an explosive Brooks, and then I think in Carolina's mind, hey, Brooks 1, Hubbard 2, we're good. But when no one else steps up, who do you give the ball to? The guy that you can trust, that carries it, isn't going to fumble it. He's just solid. He works great. Work ethic's great. He's great in the film room. So that's Chuba Hubbard. But now we go to this year and they bring in Rico Dowdle. And I think where that worries me a little bit, Mitch, is, hey, does 10 touchdowns become 7, 6? Does 1,195 yards become just 1,000? I think he's going to be their guy. I think he's better than Rico Dowdle. But, having watched Rico Dowdle for a few years, he's a solid, tough number 2 that I think you could trust. So I think now they could keep Chuba Hubbard a little bit fresher. But it just doesn't excite me. There's just the ceiling gets limited a little bit. So when it comes to fantasy and players, when we look at these, first round draft picks that we could get, I'm a little bit more enticed with the ceiling potential of some of these running backs coming out. So I'd have to really think about that. And I know you're about to throw some good offers our way, JB.
All I'm going to say is I don't think you have to pay a first to get him. That's why I like him. I don't think you're going to have to go out and pay the 110 to get him. If that's the price point, I'm out as well.
It's so funny because we're going through and he's valued between 112 and a random 26, 27 first on Fantasy Calc. I feel like all of the price points on Fantasy Calc are overblown.
Yeah.
But again,
one real quick point, because you brought up the random 27 first. It is worth more than a random 26 first right now.
I saw that actually.
Which is
I saw
funny.
Let's see. I see Frank says no one's selling him for a second in any of my leagues. Then Adam says I'll send 205 for Chuba. Adam seems very stingy with his picks. And not there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, 205's out the door.
Let's see. Oh, I like this one. So we're tearing down from Bijan Robinson. Mitch, I want to start with you.
Mm-hmm.
Bijan Robinson and 411, or Chuba Hubbard 106 and 110, 12 team, start 11, full PPR, and an extra point for tight ends.
If this wasn't the 110, let's say it was the 107, and I'm pretty confident we could talk about, the 7 players that we would be drafting in those spots. I could talk myself into it. That 110 is just slightly too late for me to even consider moving Bijan.
Yeah, I have no interest in tearing down from Bijan. I think that's just a guy you don't tear down from. There's only a few running backs that are that talented and that young. 110 to Mitch's point, and Chuba, I'm just not excited about. 106 is cool, but not for Bijan.
Now, what if I was to say, let's just say somehow what goes like this. You're getting Sanders, about the 110. You're getting Chuba, and then you're getting Travion Henderson as well. Or Caleb Johnson, flip the names out. Does that change you guys' minds at all?
I must be, maybe I didn't have enough coffee today. It's getting a little late here on the East Coast.
I don't see those guys sliding.
I don't know if I would take the package, but I didn't think this one was that far off. But man, Nate, Adam, Sean, Frank, holy shit. These guys, and I mean, Mitch, Dan, your responses were instant.
That's my posse in that chat. Mitch and I, we're loving these dudes right now, JB, man, I just the coach in me. I watch those Atlanta games, and I watch how elusive Bijan is and how he catches the ball. He does it all, man. That's why I bought that orphan last night when I was bored flipping through 50 orphans. I was like, Bijan sold,
No one likes a package like John likes a package.
Call me the UPS man. And can you imagine some fantasy football conversations taken out of context? If somebody just heard Dan say, I bought that orphan last night. So many of the things, it's these people are crazy. What fantasy football? Come on. All right, well,
John's going for Manscaped again. That's why he likes the packages. He's trying to get that Manscaped sponsor for DD Fantasy Football, I think.
All right, we don't need to be saying that I'm going to be, liking the packages over here. Happily married with a family over here, guys. All right. Chuba Hubbard for a 26 first. 12 team, super flex, start 10, PPR, extra half points for tight end. And Dan, let's start with you.
This falls in one of those categories where I'm like, pick my poison here. I don't know if I would do it just because, I don't know. Does it matter really? I love the ceiling. I'd kind of rather the 26 first. If I had a deep enough team where I could live without Chuba, I would love that potential for next year. Because when I think of a first, I'm chasing that ceiling guy. I'm chasing that next superstar. Chuba Hubbard's not that next superstar to me, but I don't want to throw away 1,000 yards and 8 to 10 touchdowns if I'm on a contender for something I got to wait for next year. So I would probably, no matter what side of this I'm on, try to negotiate for just a little something extra to tilt it. Contender, keep Chuba maybe. If I'm not contending, rebuilding, hey, send Chuba back and take the first.
Mitch?
Broke my
if I'm
pen, I guess.
contending, I'm willing to move my 26 first for Chuba. If I'm just a team that is hoping to contend, a team that I'm like, hey, if I play this right, I can make the playoffs and make a run, I'm not making that move for Chuba.
Yeah, if your team is sitting and you're in a fragile situation, I wouldn't be looking to move the 26 first here. But like you guys have already mentioned, if you're in a nice spot, if you believe, I mean, like, it's so tough to say, yeah, that's going to be a late 26 first, because we've all been in those situations where on paper things just look glorious. You know, you're winning the value game. You go on dynastydaddy.com and you're first in the power rankings. You're like, this team is a juggernaut. But just catching up on some of the comments, but like, it's tough to want to move a future first. And now what if it was one of those 27 firsts? I don't think, because again, more time, more potential variance, more time for a team to go down the crapper. I don't think that you're going to see many people wanting to do that. And you look at some of the price points, Chuba for Ricky Pearsall, Tank Dell, and 208 in a 14-team league. So the 22nd overall pick there. Is that Chuba? Or is that Pearsall?
What was that total deal there? Pearsall and what?
Nobody listens to me. Chuba for Ricky Pearsall, Tank Dell, and 208 in a 14-team Superflex Start 10 full PPR.
Pearsall. Package.
Oh, man. I think it depends what I need between the running back and receiver position there. They'll be roster dependent.
110 or Chuba?
Oh, 110.
I'll lean 110.
And again, 12 team Superflex full PPR.
That's close though.
For tight ends. One more here. Is it overall the same sentiment from you guys? Like, right below the Bijan trade, Gibbs for Chuba, 106 and 112.
Not moving Gibbs for anything.
Yeah, there's Bijan, Gibbs, and everybody else. Man.
I don't care what you offer me. Gibbs isn't leaving my rosters.
And Ash and Genty about to join that class.
Yeah.
All right. Well, recently moved over to Denver. Evan Ingram, tight end 5 on the Trinity score for 2024. Fantasy calc, tight end 13 value-wise. Only played 9 games, but still put up 47 receptions, a whopping 365 yards, and 1 touchdown. We're looking at his value right around that 205 in non-premium leagues. And again, the value coming from Fantasy Calc. Just for a quick snapshot, Dan, before I turn it over to you for your thoughts on Evan Ingram and can he get back to form here in Denver, he doesn't give you a ton of touchdown upside. He really never has. He is a volume-dependent tight end that really thrives with the opportunities inside the, between the 20s. 72% snap share in 24, 79% in 23, 77% in 22. Yards per route run, pretty steady across the board as well over the last 3 seasons. So really, when you look at Evan Ingram, does he stay on the field enough in that Denver offense and get enough volume to make a difference? Do you believe he does, Dan?
Here's my thoughts. JB, this is why I love Dynasty Theory. All right. This is a no shameless plug. Whether it's things that you two gentlemen say, or some good nuggets that we get in our chat or the YouTube comments after. I remember X amount of Dynasty Theory episodes ago, Mitch said, if there's a year where you rebuild your tight end position, it's this year. So when we look at what pick I'm going to give up for Evan Ingram, to me, Evan Ingram's always been a wide receiver. What do we say about wide receivers? When they turn 31, we're kind of getting out, right? So he's a receiver playing tight end, and we say, hey, he's got to stay healthy. What's been the history of Evan Ingram? He's had a little bit better luck in recent years, but he's got a big injury history. So we got a 31-year-old receiver playing tight end with an injury history. I like his spot. I wouldn't mind him for this year, but I'm going to be very careful of not paying too much for Evan Ingram. Does he have the potential to be a top 12 tight end this year, JB? Yes, and I might even bet on it with Bo Nix and Peyton and, just a bet on health. Yeah, I can see him top 12 this year. So, hey, if you're contending, we're similar. We're talking to Andrews before. If you want to give a mid-second for him, maybe 203, 204. All right, hey, I could see the roll of the dice if you're in it to win it, but buyer beware is all I'm saying at age 31 with a receiver playing tight end with an injury history.
I have quite a bit exposure to Evan Ingram. I think I'm at like 25% still across the board. And what I have been able to do, I moved him, and I cannot remember the specific deal, and it was just a few days ago, but I moved him as part of a larger package to get a deal done. But it's a situation where I feel very good with my tight end room, and Evan Ingram's kind of that leftover tight end, excess tight end, however you want to look at it. And it was enough to get the deal over the finish line. We talk about it, especially a player like Evan Ingram. This might be the last opportunity to really push him off your roster. And I'm not saying dump him just to dump him. That's not what I'm saying. But he has to fit into this situation. I know, Sean Payton refers to the Joker a lot in his offense. And is Evan Ingram that? I think he's more, close to what Dan said, being a receiver that classifies as a tight end, and he has to make it out of the NFL draft. You see a lot of mocks where the Broncos are looking at tight end, and yes, he tied to Bo Nix for the next 2 years based on the contract, but he's a very fragile asset. Even when he was producing the way he was so tough to move if you wanted to. So, Mitch, what are you?
Sorry, guys. I just say, JB, Mitch and I, we bust you in the past. Like, you have 50 shares of Russ Wilson. We're like, hey, what are you doing with all those Russ Wilson shares? But like for Ingram landing in Denver, I think that's the ideal spot for all your shares. Now it's a matter of what you do with them. Hey, where do you keep them and where do you move them?
I know John just says that he wants to dump him, just to dump him. I know that's really what John was alluding to there. But here, this is where I always come down to with tight ends, right? Tight ends is a position to where if they do good, they have value. If they don't, they don't. Unless they're young, and then they just kind of continually have value because then there's no one else to value because there's not a lot of good tight ends in the league. So I go over to John's tiers, and I'm like, I want Evan Ingram over Tucker Kraft, probably over Mark Andrews, over Ferguson.
Man, that Tucker Kraft comment, it might get you and me killed because people love Tucker Kraft.
I would love to understand why, but so I want him over Cole Kmet, want him over Travis Kelce, want him over Zay Likely, want him over Pat Freiermuth, over Cade Otton. I mean, that's the thing is it just comes down to when I'm actually looking for tight ends that I want to have on my roster. There's like 6 or 7 of them. And Evan Ingram is just a guy that I could talk myself to. And so while I'm like, yeah, he's 31, he's had injury issues. Now's a good time to move him. Who do I even want to start? Like if I'm tanking, sure, give me whoever. But if I'm contending, give me someone that I actually want to play.
And you look at some of these trades, and I'm laughing to myself because up on Google in front of me right now, I have happy as a pig in mud in my search. Let me see here. Where were the trades we were looking at? Evan Ingram for 206 and 406. 12 teams start 10 full PPR, extra 0.75 PPR for tight ends. Again, wrapping up the episode. A little bit longer episode tonight, but again, a lot of that's because the chat has been fantastic.
Mhm.
You're watching live, you're watching back. Hit the like button on the video. Helps out the whole community here. All right, so Mitch, where do you see that trade?
Evan Ingram.
Yeah, I see Ingram also there. I would want a little more.
And then Evan Ingram or Tony Pollard, only an extra half point for tight ends.
In half point, I'll go Tony Pollard. Any other premium, I'll go Evan Ingram.
Yeah, TP, man. Hopefully Tennessee's better, and he did well last year. So
I see one Evan Ingram for 301.
Yeah, there was some I didn't really think would happen, so I didn't include them.
Evan Ingram, Aaron Jones, and Jacoby Myers for 201. Evan Ingram for Tyler Conklin, Alec Pearson at 26th third. Again, like, pay attention when people take over orphans in your leagues. I would suspect that a few of these are going to be those situations. I see Frank's comment, Pollard's a sneaky value this year. Dan's been all aboard the Tony Pollard train for quite some time, and I do think he's a nice value, so I would agree there. But again, pay attention to folks taking over orphans, because there are going to be very nice buying opportunities whenever you look at these guys. Oh, man, guys. I could have talked all night tonight. I don't think that's surprising to anybody.
We might have to talk about Tucker Kraft if people actually like, because I want to make sure I wasn't going crazy. He had 4 games that had a top 12 finish. 2 of those were tight end 1 weeks, which is great. He had the next best one. He had a tight end 8 and then a tight end 11. I'm like, why do people love him? I don't understand. I don't get the price point. Remember when he was like tight end 5 in the beginning of this offseason? It was nuts.
Here, really quick, before we get to the final thoughts here, Dan, Nick got Ingram in 206 for Andrews. Let's assume extra half point since we don't have the context here. I think that's an Ingram smash.
I could roll the dice with Ingram because I think his production will be in the ballpark of Andrews, and there's some guys at 206 that I'm sure we all could say, hey, that could be something. Good trade.
Great move. Great move.
Yeah, I love that pivot there. And Dan, you were going to say something before I interrupted you.
Just touching on Mitch with Tucker Kraft. I mean, I guess the word love's the key. Like, I'm not loving him. Like, I don't think he's going to break out. But if I was stashing him, or like, I think what's good about Tucker Kraft is he made us forget about Luke Musgrave. Like, we didn't know, right? Like, he is the tight end 1 there. 50 catches, 707 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Nothing to sneeze at age 24 on an offense that kind of sputtered last year. So, again, he just falls in that mix, though, Mitch. It's like, okay, it's like, I don't love him, but I could see you being okay if he's your guy on your roster. He'll hold you over for just fine.
All right. I feel in Mitch's eyes, he's like, John, shut up.
I was there 50 minutes in, but look at us, an hour and 12-minute show. Look at us.
I say it each and every week we're live. We were live before we joined the DD Fantasy Football community. When the chat is acting this way, I can't step away. I can't leave. It's been on fire each and every week. It's been getting better and better. But all right, now, an hour and 13 minutes in, Dan, for the 285th time, final thoughts. What do you got for our listeners?
Man, just loving the month of April. You know, trying to kill time, 25 days to the NFL draft that we all cannot wait for. But my Duke Blue Devils, 1 win away from a natty, boys. I'm excited about that. We'll sprinkle in some hockey and baseball. Took over an orphan today. 20 days to WrestleMania. My boy John Cena is going to win number 17. And then it's draft day. So loving the month of April for us here at Dynasty Theory.
I know you'll be excited about WrestleMania. If I see a fan jump in the ring, I'm going to assume it's you, Dan. Mitch, for the 285th time, what do you got?
Well, it's going to happen. I know everyone out there, and 99% of people are probably right. I'm probably the 1% that's wrong. Cam Ward is going to be on the Cleveland Browns. Just saying it's going to happen. That's my final thought.
Well, you could be right, and the books could be right. Maybe the Browns move up to number 1. So
that could happen.
Overall.
That could happen. I'm
go.
willing to allow that to happen.
All right.
There's a
Again,
scenario.
The chat, absolutely fantastic. A ton of great content at DD Fantasy Football. Make sure you check out the website. Use code Theory if you do want to check it out. Link is in the episode description below. Get 50% off. Jump in the Discord community. Just conversations like you saw in the chat going nonstop. And I hope this sparks some ideas, whether or not you're looking to sell or buy any of these players. Again, I hope it sparks some trade activity in your leagues and you can get something going. For Mitch Sorensen, Dan Lamagna, I'm John Bauer. We'll catch everybody next week. Peace.